Welcome back to the Muddy River Tactical Podcast. I am your host, Kyle Mason, joined today, as always, by Kevin Mason and Brett Davis. And we are really excited. We've got a super special guest in studio today with us. We have got Bret Cortright from Warhorses for Veterans. So let's all go around the table and say hello to Brett.
I haven't seen Brett in years, so I went to high school with Brett, and it's good to see him again, and he's doing some cool things, so it should be a cool episode.
And this is Brett and Brett.
This is the other Brett when Brett was wondering who we were always talking about before.
It's
Brett
good
to
to
the
meet
second
you.
power.
That's right.
We're
Which
gonna
one
have
is which, though?
Battle of the Bretts. See which one's better. So
How many T's do you have in your name?
2. Best there is.
so he's Deuce and you're Uno.
Yeah.
Good enough.
That works.
All right. Bret Cortright, tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of just your brief background for people who do not know you.
Yeah. Bret Cortright. I actually went to high school with Kevin. Met Kyle and their family over the years. Back in the day, got out of high school, worked at Hy-Vee for the longest time. Went to Hellgate Gas. I think it was called Medical Gas at the time. And then got into law enforcement. January of 2006. Left law enforcement in 2017. I've done CAD work with some pretty cool reconstruction equipment, laser scanners. Got introduced to Warhorses for Veterans first part of 2019 and hired full-time in 2020, and I've been with them ever since. And love my job, love everything about it, the people we serve, and yeah.
So you get to be like a real-life cowboy, for lack of better terms.
I would not say that, no. We try to do some stuff, but we work with some pretty awesome cowboys.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Fun. So you talk about meeting Kevin in high school. What was Kevin like in school?
You know, I was thinking on this, and I remember, I think it was consumer math when I think it was consumer math.
Jessie was in that class too, wasn't she?
Yeah, my current wife, my only wife.
I was gonna
To clarify,
We'll say only.
to clarify, my only wife. Kevin was in school with me, and I remember not wanting to do math. I didn't want to do school, honestly, but I knew this guy would wear a hoodie and jeans every day like me, and somehow we started talking about hunting or deer and something or other, and then it was like, hey, let's go to this property up in KCK. You remember that old...
That was before the racetrack was there. Isn't that where the racetrack is now? With the peacocks and turkeys and all
on
that?
the east side.
It was on the other side.
But real close.
Yeah. But
Okay.
yeah, there was that turkey, which we can get into that story. But yeah, so we go out there, and I'm like, oh, this guy's all right, you know. It was fun, and I remember you driving like some weird green. It was either Corolla or Honda or something or other, but you always had your bow in the back window. I was like, okay, I can do this, and I remember saving him in my phone as Kevin Hunter because he was a hunter, and that's until I figured out his last name, but. Yeah, and I feel like we just hit it off, and we would go to class, we would miss class, we'd always go to McDonald's for lunch. I think that was my senior year of high school. But
You had Little Red.
Yeah, I had Little Red. My first truck was an 89 S10. Had the thing repainted, tinted windows. I mean, it was pretty cool until it got totaled. Which, well, I don't know if you want to go down that rabbit hole.
That's a little bit.
What happened to Little Red?
I sold Little Red to this guy named Kevin Mason, and he thought it was great to see how many backflips he could do in the truck.
So we won't get too far into this, but the same girl that was Brett with the phone, her friend is the one that totaled the truck.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah.
You never knew that?
I thought it was you, but that
No.
I think the insurance company did
Yeah,
too.
the insurance company.
What
thought it was
statute
me,
of
too.
limitations on something?
I don't know, but my heart feels like it's breaking right now. So, but yeah, we just hit it off. We hunted, we fished, we hung out all the time. I mean, we did all sorts of stuff, and it was a good time.
So how did you get into hunting and fishing? Was it something your dad did or grandpa or?
It's weird because we fished a lot as a kid. We always fished at Hillsdale. We'd go camping. We'd do all sorts of stuff. But I really didn't get into hunting truly until probably high school. my dad wasn't. He hunted a little bit with friends in his younger days, but it wasn't really until I started getting into it. Then I was taking my dad hunting, and but yeah, I just kind of got into it. I got hooked. I like bow hunting. That was kind of my thing after meeting Kevin. Other than that, I was really big into rifle hunting, but bow hunting was where it was at.
Weren't you like big into goose hunting for a minute or duck hunting?
Yeah, I did a lot of waterfowl. We shot all sorts of geese and ducks, and it was a lot of fun, but it just, at the time, I feel like Kansas, the whole area just kind of dried up, and I ended up selling all my waterfowl stuff. But
I remember the first time he's like, let's go waterfowl hunting. I had no idea what we're doing. Remember we went up to Smithville?
I was wondering if you even wanted to talk about that story.
At this point, I think it's so far.
There was so many things done incorrectly, borderline, I don't even know. I mean, we'll just leave it at that on that one.
I'll just go into it just a tad. So I have no idea what we're doing. And Brett back in the day would get fired up easy. So we were sitting there freezing, and finally some birds come. I don't know what all these birds are. He never told me what to identify a bird. So
You just hear shotguns going off.
So I shot a bird, and maybe or maybe not, I was not supposed to shoot this bird. And he told me to go bury it.
I was thinking of the other half of that, where there was a wounded goose that had landed near us. And so Kevin's like, oh, let's get it. So he got it, and there's nobody around us. And then we see this kid come out of the tree line, younger than us.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Younger than us. Okay. And he goes, hey, did you guys see a bird fall over here? And we're like,
Nope.
no. And so, we're young, teenage, we don't know, And then he said, my dad shot it. It should have landed over here. And at this time, we see this guy crawling out of the woods with made crutches that are this tall, crawling. The guy had polio. Or his or he was, he was, paralyzed. And Kevin looks at me. I'm looking at him like, this is really uncomfortable.
Yeah, we're going to hell now.
And this guy's crawling across the ground, dragging his legs. And Kevin stole this poor man's bird. I don't think he actually.
All I can think of right now is Dumb and Dumber when he sold the bird to the blind.
I felt really bad. I'm sure Kevin
we
did.
ended up giving it to him.
We did, yeah.
I forgot what story we came up with.
Yeah,
We happened to
I think
find
it.
it.
It's over. They got their bird, but it was so uncomfortable. It was a very weird.
We didn't go duck hunting very much after that, I don't think.
No. But we had a lot of fun doing bow hunting. Kevin got me kind of into the bow hunting thing, and I didn't have a bow. I didn't have anything, and he taught me the art of tree climbing, which is
Don't do it. Don't let Kevin teach you tree climbing.
I've fallen a couple times. There was a time where I think we were down at the farm, and it was still dark, and so we interlocked our climber stands, foot, seat, and we would work together to get up to the top.
It's so dark we couldn't see. We had no idea. I don't think we're very high.
We didn't think we were high. Light shows, and we see animals moving, but they're the size of an ant. And we're so high in this tree, you're literally looking straight down. There is no, I can see it coming out. No, it's literally straight down. So we ended up going down a little bit, but that was where I think that was my first fall was I had all the tree stand on my back trying to climb this fence that went down to a ditch, and I just ate it. I just tripped on the fence and went down, and so that's how I learned the art of tree climbing with Kevin. So
I learned a long time ago, a ladder stand I'll get in, but any of his fixed position stands, I won't even try them because he'll go from ladder to transition off to steps that are on the tree, maybe to more ladder, and you're 47 feet up in the air, overlooking a ravine.
Oh, yeah.
He's like, we got to be up there because of the wind. It's yeah, but I'm going to die or not be able to stand up once I get there. You could put 3 safety harnesses on me, and I'd never feel comfortable up there.
We were hunting at that place in KCK, and he's like, there's a stand over here go down this way, take a right, whatever. He's going to go this other one. So I'm like, okay, so
We are back after brief technical difficulties. So before we got interrupted by our maintenance guy and his lack of maintenance on the
Yeah,
camera.
maintenance department fault there.
So that's a strike for Deuce over here.
Yeah,
so one strike.
Damn.
So you're losing 1-0 right now. So it's like golf. The lower the score, the better. But
That'll work.
Uno, Brett over there, was talking about going down this path to the tree stand of death that Kevin had hung in the dark.
Yeah, so he says, just go down here. There's a stand up in the tree. You can't miss it. It's in a field. So I start walking down there, and I'm thinking, okay, that'll be a nice ladder stand. No. It's got the pegs screwed in. I think one was a nail. And so as I get up there, but it's one of those single seat platforms, and it was so small. I thought I was going to die. None of us wore safety equipment, young and invincible. And I climb up 3/4 of the way, go back down.
Cussing me the whole time.
Yeah, probably. And so then I'm like, just get up in the stand and sit. So I get up there, I sit down. It took me 20 minutes to just turn to sit. I didn't see anything. It sucked the whole time. Experience, it was horrible. And so that was another lesson learned from Kevin on.
I've had one of those with him too, and same type of deal. I walked like a mile back into this place. Finally got there. I'm looking at this thing, and it's dark. I'm like, no, not happening. I was like, I will sit at the base of this tree with my bow and try and do it Indian style before I go up there. It's not happening.
Well, I don't really do a whole lot of tree stands anymore. I'm really good, comfortable, kind of feel like I've mastered the art of just hunting from the ground. Like, I'll just lean my gun, my bow, whatever against a tree, and I just hang out next to a tree.
Do you use ground blinds ever, or just?
We did last year, but the way I look at hunting is, everyone's like, man, you got to smell this. A lot of it comes down to just the wind, knowing where your wind's coming from. And so, I have people tell, man, I pee in a bottle in a tree stand, and I don't dip, I don't do this. And Kevin and I have killed a lot of deer, and this guy's smoking cigarettes. I'm spitting and taking a dump out of a tree stand. So if you think about the early mornings, the forest is loud. I mean, when it starts to come alive, it's loud. Now, not talking, but if I rustle my foot, I've been very successful with just being very minimal.
And as long as you're not moving too much, and that's whether you're on the ground or in a tree stand or even a redneck blind or something. If you're moving around a bunch
and being attentive, looking where you're hoping they would come versus where they actually show up, but just being aware. I mean, I've killed a lot of deer just standing against a tree.
Well, and I think now more than ever, people probably miss more deer than they'd ever realize just looking on their phone because everybody's scrolling 100%, Facebook and texting and all that.
Well, you pass the time. I'll look up in 5 minutes, and then it's 20, and you're like, well, I don't know what I missed.
Yeah.
So
Kevin told the story about you chucking a pole after catching this claim.
Which pole?
Yeah. So,
multiples.
So was throwing your pole in the river like always something you did, or was this like an acquired trait, or?
He thought about it for a while.
I can't really explain the young Bret. I, for whatever reason, had a short temper. I was angry a lot, but I don't really know why. I have no idea. I remember that incident, parts of it. I thought it was a rock, I guess, but yeah, I mean, it turned out to be a clam or a mussel or whatever the heck it was, but I remember that corner where the spillway met the other stream or creek, whatever, river, because you could see gar. Like if the light hit the water right, you could see gar just hanging out, just floating. And yeah, I think I remember chucking a pole there. I think there was one in the spillway too.
Did you think you were going to come on today and get a therapy session?
No, no.
He knows better than that.
Yeah, I have the old saying, "Oh, it's time to turn over a new leaf." Bret uprooted a tree. I truly, I've had a crazy life, and up to where I'm at now, it's just been a up, down, good, bad, ugly journey, but I've chucked poles, phones. I do remember I did listen to the last podcast about that, and I do remember who I was talking to.
From Kearney, Nebraska, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was when I had. Matter of fact, I still have that phone. It's the old Motorola flip phone. It looks like the
Was
front
it a
of a
Motorola or
Volkswagen.
was it the Nextel? Because didn't we have Nextel?
Oh no, it was a Nextel, wasn't it?
Because remember at her house, I'd always keep being.
Oh yeah. I did find my first phone. It was silver, old Motorola, looked like a Volkswagen.
Does it smell like Bud Light still?
No, I don't know, maybe, but yeah, I don't know if it was just I really didn't know how to deal with anger, and so I would just.
It made for good stories.
Obviously now it does, but but yeah.
That kind of leads us into, we talked about you worked at Hellgate, and we won't get too far into that. I mean, that's a whole deal on its own, but you went into law enforcement over at the sheriff's department where you started, and you talk about you had a quick fuse, and I think I remember you telling me they had you read verbal judo when you first stared to try and take some of the edge off of you.
Everybody had to read that back then. Let me back a little bit on the gas plant. A friend of mine got me hired on there, and it was an interesting chapter of my life of just pumping oxygen bottles, starting before the sun and then staying after the sun, and just it was hard work. But I was actually getting ready to go into the Navy and all this and that, and ended up not, because I went to a nice country concert at it used to be, I don't know what it's called now, but it used to be called Sandstone.
Oh yeah, it's Azira or something like that now, or whatever.
Yeah. But we were out there drinking beer in the tailgate, and I have this guy that walked up wearing shorts, tennis shoes, and like a Hawaiian shirt, and I still remember that really vivid. And I see his thumbs go like this, and I just see the neck, and then I just see this badge coming out. It just plops, boom, and so I ended up getting an MIP, and so I lost my clearance for the Navy. I was going at Master at Arms, and I don't know if it's true or not, but the recruiter was like, "Man, there's only so many going this year, and you're going to Fleet." So I backed out of the Navy, kept working at the gas place for a while, and wanted to get into law enforcement. Of course, I just got in trouble. But they had a new position there at the sheriff's department. Started with them January of 2006, working in the jail as a civilian because I was 20, and basically we did all the intake. So I did like all the property. People come into jail, you inventory their clothes or money or whatever. Moved over to classifications, which was basically you did backgrounds on any person that was booked into jail, determine what their security level of housing would be, maximum, minimum, whatever. Look at their previous history in prison or jail, and determine if they can mix with this person or that. So
there's actually a lot of thought that goes into. You're not just throwing them in a bunk with somebody.
No. Yeah, when you first get in, you're in a main intake housing area, and then classification would do a write-up on you, background on you. Then we'd go down, we'd have a stack of people to talk to and basically interview one-on-one, just like we are talking here, ask them about, whatever it may be. And then it was a scoring sheet. Depending on where they scored, then that would be their security level. And then from there, you would put them there. You could have an override. So maybe that was like the 80s when they were bad or whatever, and now they were here for a DUI or something. Then you can get an override, and maybe they go to minimum now. So there is a lot that goes into placement of inmates. But I did that for well, when I turned 21, I had already submitted to become sworn and got my commission. I think it was December 4th of '06, and then went to the police academy the next year in '07. So,
So did you have any wild stories from the jail or anything you feel like sharing? Or
you know, you can't be surprised there. It just, there was a guy that was in our special housing area. It was a lot of mental problems. It could be psychiatric problems. If you had a Kansas City celebrity or whatever that was booked in, or NFL player, they were in there because nobody knew who they were. But I've seen people eating scabs off their body. I mean, they need mental health really bad, and they're just in jail. What do you do? Or people that are about to die from diabetes or whatever. They're in a medical unit. But I think the craziest thing was this older guy was definitely mental issues, and one of the other deputies opened the chow hole, the bean hole, whatever you want to call it, to give him his food, and this guy chucked a turd out the thing out the chow hole, and he was so like, what just happened? And so he went over, put a glove on, and picked up that turd and set it back in there. And he's like, put that in the toilet. So just weird things like that. Thankfully I didn't see a whole lot of craziness. But I will tell you, starting in a jail is probably, in my opinion, one of the best things a police officer can do to set you up for working the street. Because in the jail, you have your keys, you have OC spray, handcuffs, and a radio in your brain. You have to learn to talk to people that don't want to talk to you. My dad was deputy sheriff for 30 years before he retired in 12, and starting out in the jail, he always told me, he goes, treat them how you would want to be treated if you were in their position. Always be firm, but always be fair, and never lie. And so that's just kind of what I stuck with. And I never had any major issues with anybody because I treated people firm and fair, and I didn't lie. And I'm not going to, well, can you get me a new set of shoes, on your lunch break? Well, I can't this time, but, if you tell them you're going to do it, then do it. So I gained a lot of respect in that aspect, I think. So, but it really set me up to be able to communicate better and talk to people on the street.
so you were at the jail, at the sheriff's department. Mm-hmm. You end up transferring to another local police department. What brought on that change? Were you just done with the sheriff's deal, or did you want to go do more specialized stuff? Or
I thought about sticking it out at the sheriff's department. I loved working there. I loved the people. At the time, it would take years to get to patrol, and you had to meet a certain criteria, test, interview, all this stuff to go to the road. And I enjoyed my time, but when you're in a cement box, it takes a toll on your brain of, man, I missed the sunlight. It's always 70 degrees in here, but I did. I wanted to do a little bit more. I wanted to get out. I wanted to do the real police thing, and the guys in the jail, they do a very difficult job that I think a lot of people downplay. It's a miniature city inside a jail. There's a kitchen, there's, the records people, there's medical staff. I mean, they have a hospital more or less in there. The dentist comes in, there's a barber. I mean, so it's a miniature city. And for the guys and gals that stayed with it for years and years, hats off to them. But, it just wasn't what I was wanting to do. I really wanted to get out and do more. So, yeah, I went to a local city PD October 2008, I think is when I started with them, and just started patrol, working, FTO training. Theirs was 26 weeks, I think, long. So, I mean, it was a long FTO program, and then the last 2 weeks of that is basically shadowing. Your training officer will wear plain clothes and ride, shotgun in your car, and they have a vest on underneath and still carrying handgun and all that. But that's
Is that so the people you're dealing with interact with you and not them?
right?
Okay.
So they're considered a ride along. They make sure you get everything done right. They're there, in case something does go squirrely, and if there is an emergency, they can help step in. But typically, that's the solo phase, the shadowing phase, to make sure you're.
So you got 26 weeks of that after police academy. So your whole training before you're going out on the road is almost a year then, or how?
So when I was at the sheriff's department, there was, I want to say, 2 weeks of pre-academy, and then our police academy at the time, I think, was 16 or 18. I think it was 16 or 18 weeks. And then when you get done with that, you have like 4 weeks post-academy, or 2 weeks post-academy, and then an additional 4 weeks of, they called it JTO, jail training officer. So we would do that, and then you would be released on your own. When you go to a city agency, you would do pre-academy, then you do the police academy, and then you do FTO, or like a post-academy, where they kind of show you how this agency specifically does things, their policies, their procedures, and then you go into FTO, and then that's an additional, it could be anywhere from 8 weeks, depending on where you're at, up to 26 weeks, depending on the agency. But there's a lot of time, but I was told that depending on what agency you're with, if you go to Casey Mo, 1 year in Casey Mo could be equivalent to 5 years in an agency in Johnson County.
Just the amount of calls that you run,
right? And the exposure of the experience of the calls. But I was always told usually it takes about 2 to 2.5 years on your own. excuse me, to be a functional police officer, to know what you need to do, to have the experience, to do the job correctly.
Well, and it's little tips, and if you want me to stop, just tell me to stop at any point in time. But I know we've talked about situations that you've had where you come up on a traffic stop and you always had your seatbelt off and you're opening the door before you ever stop the car, and you go up, turn, face them where you can see traffic and you can see inside the whole vehicle, and that saved your life in a situation or two, being able to see the whole vehicle.
Yeah,
and that's something a rookie cop might not know, right away.
Well, and that's a lot of, it goes back again to the training, but a lot of departments are really up to speed on approach, training the felony car stop or high risk stop, whatever you want to call it. But it does get monotonous stopping the same car, stopping cars every day. You have no idea what could happen. But I think, especially knowing what I know now versus, being a brand new cop, your idea is this. And then as you get older, you mature, you see the whole scope of everything. I think that can change your outlook a lot. I know as far as, there was a 25 or 30 year deputy told me, he said, the best thing I can tell you is you don't need to know everything. You need to know where to find it. And that, I think, really helped my career a lot. Was you don't have to memorize this, but know where to find it.
I think about that a lot, like watching some of these, and I'll call them antagonists, trying to videotape the cops, and they'll do something just to get, have to call in the sergeant or whoever and antagonize the cops, and they're like, well, section blah, 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 and they've got it all planned out.
Yeah.
So that kind of speaks to what you're talking about. Hey, you might not know every law, and nobody's going to know every law in the book or every code.
Well, and, you may have a STO or a traffic violation or, something that you don't deal with all the time. And so you're going to have, I know it's illegal or I know it's probably going to meet these elements of the crime, but how do I find that? So I have to go back and look, and, there's no shame in that. I want to make sure I'm right. And I also went by the, when in doubt, throw it out. If I thought I saw a violation, I would rather err on not stopping that car to violate somebody's rights for, did he do it? I wanted to make sure that when I stopped somebody, I knew 100% without a doubt that happened. But yeah, learning the training to get your cars stopped, and those high risk, and learning to be observant. I'll tell you, one of the it worked out great, thankfully. But there was a stop that it felt so weird, and it's hard to explain this, but you have a gut feeling for a reason. And I'll tell you, I stopped this car, and I did get out, and I remember seeing another black and white car going this way, and as I'm walking up, I'm like, hey, come over here. And so I get up there, and I'm talking to the guy. I don't remember what the violation was. There was two guys in the car. And I said, can I get your license, your insurance? And he was being friendly-ish. But I said, can I get your registration? And these are the small cues that rookie cops versus getting to know, to truly be observant. He went to go open the glove box, and the passenger blocked it with his knee. So just that, like anybody else, like, I don't have it. Well, to see that intentional block of that, I'm like, okay, something's going on. So then it's, put your hands on the dash, stuff like that. The other officer gets there, and, we ended up pulling 4 handguns out of this car. There was 2 in the glove box and 1 under each seat. And we ended up arresting them, get back to station. And the driver actually had told me, and this is where I kind of dealt with this, you can call it trauma, but just the options of what could have happened was, he's like, if you didn't get out of your car quick enough, he was going to start shooting at you. And I'm like, dang, So that's that's a deep gut check of like, if I hadn't done this or that, it could have gone this way. And that guy had full intention to shoot, but because I was up on the car quick enough, he didn't have that option, because I would have had to jump on it.
Was it the driver or the passenger? So the guy blocking, excuse me, blocking it with his knee, was he the one that was wanting to shoot?
Yeah.
Or trying to stop the driver from getting it?
He was the one that was going to shoot. He was blocking because there was 2 revolvers in the glove box, and so he didn't want that to open and be seen.
Gotcha. Okay.
So, but little, observation and watching is key to be a successful police officer. I in my opinion, being able to listen and watch versus talking. So it took me a while to figure that out. I'll be honest with you, but yeah, that for some reason that bothered me for quite a while, and nothing bad happened, but it was what could have happened.
But you go home and then you look at your wife and you look at your kids and like,
Yeah,
this dude almost shot me over nothing.
yeah, and I don't even think there was any drugs in the car. It was just guns. So
they didn't end up having warrants or anything?
I think they had a couple of warrants,
okay.
but I don't even think they were anything crazy, But again, you don't know what people's mental state is when you're stopping them. They could have had literally the worst day, and you are the cherry on the top.
And I think you get a lot of people too that, even if it's speeding, they know they're about to get $100 ticket, and they might have $28 in their bank account.
Right.
And they're like, shit, I can't afford rent this month already, and here's Officer Brett gonna take more of the money I don't have already.
Well, and that's where I feel like, especially in today's society, I have noticed this. The true, man, I'm like clear my throat here. The true empathy of our nation's police officers. I truly, firmly, with all my heart, believe the majority are truly good people. And being able to understand that and know that, I can't tell you how many people are like, man, I can't do this, I can't pay that, I can't do this. I'm willing to help people. I've given more warnings than tickets. But some people need a ticket.
Yeah.
They have it coming to them because that's how they're going to learn, is this smack in the wallet. And ain't none of that money coming to me. We don't get to add a tip here or, a commission. None of us get it. But having good empathy on something like that, I felt I always did. I always felt I was an honest cop. I felt that I did things right and truthfully. I never exaggerated anything. But yeah, I think having that empathy on situations like that are 100%.
Well, and I've heard a lot of cops say, I've never had anybody talk their way out of a ticket, but I've had a lot of people talk their way into one. Is that kind of a universal truth?
Yes and no. I personally tried to make a decision before I even got to the car. They're either going to get one or they're not going to get one, because I'm not going to let what happens dictate what's going to happen. Now, things can change 100%, but typically, if I'm going to stop you, I already know if I'm going to give you a ticket or not. For our city, we didn't even pull people over unless they were doing, 12 over on city streets and 15 on the highway. Well, if you're doing 15 on a city street, you're going to get a ticket.
And you probably should.
Yeah. Now, are there situations where, I get that? Sure, 100%. But, I had a guy that was doing 103 or 104 on 435, at 70 mile an hour, and pull him over. And it was a brand new Dodge Challenger and this and that. And so I go back and writing this sucker out. And then I get up there and he's like, well, my wife's a deputy, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, that ain't going to matter right now, man. Your choices, your actions have decided this. And that's just the way it is. So
Our grandpa was a captain in North Kansas City, and his wife lived down in that, or was from Alabama, and they're going down, and this is back in the 80s, when you could get by with a lot more, but
oh yeah,
driving down for Christmas to see her family in Alabama, and he's doing, I don't know, he's cooking down through wherever, and gets into Alabama and gets pulled over by a state trooper, so he thinks he's going to be slick and puts his badge out on the dash, and trooper walks up, he's like, I pulled you over. He's like, no, I'm really not sure. He's like, you're doing whatever and whatever. He's like, well, from one law enforcement officer to another, and kind of taps his badge. He's like, I'm sure we can work this out. He's like, from one law enforcement officer to another, you should have known better than to go however fast in Alabama.
Oh, yeah.
And he was so mad that he got that ticket. But
yeah,
it's like, man, we probably had that one coming too.
What's that joke about the guy getting pulled over by the state trooper, and he's like, why were you going that fast? He goes, my ex-wife ran off with a state trooper. I thought you were trying to bring her back.
Yeah.
Those are good ones.
So you talk about working the road. I know you had some other pretty cool roles that you did. You did motorcycle stuff. You drove the tank for the SWAT team for a little bit. Is that?
Yeah, that was 20
Oh yeah,
Wednesday.
Yeah,
Is it?
Wednesday tornado sirens.
Yeah.
So.
It happens where I'm at too.
So motorcycle, SWAT team tank deal, and you did DOT also. Can you tell us a little bit about those roles?
Yeah, so when I got to the PD, I was pretty excited to go to traffic. That was kind of like my main focus. I wanted to be on a bike and do that kind of stuff. And I thoroughly enjoyed the math of working crashes and how it happened, which is so crazy because Kevin and I sucked at math.
I think my mom did our math project, didn't she?
I don't know which one she did.
Didn't Mom do your online schooling for you? Allegedly.
Yeah, allegedly. But, I was fascinated by that kind of stuff. But I definitely wanted to do motorcycle. I just thought it was cool. I had a sport bike for a while. And
just to interject, because I talked about this briefly on one of our episodes. You guys had I'll call them SBRs, or short-barreled rifles, on the saddlebags on your motorcycles where you're at?
Yes. Yeah. So we were the first agency to get Victory motorcycles. And so you could put a short-barrel AR in the saddlebag, and it would be a lock. I mean, you'd have your gun lock with it, but yeah, you could carry an AR in that. I think they came out with one for a Harley. I only rode the Harleys, but I think they had to drill a hole on the back or something just so the barrel could stick out just a little bit. I never put one in my bike or anything like that. But,
okay. Sorry to interject.
No, you're good. So, but and then I think I'd been there maybe a year, and I knew that we had a pretty awesome TAC team, SWAT team, and they had their rescue vehicle in the radio shop, which was right by the back door for us to come in and out. And I see them rolling this tracked vehicle out, and I'm like, God dang, I want to drive that. And so I just, hey, how do I get to do this? This eager, chipper, piss and vinegar guy, and like, well, get in the line, buddy. I'm like, okay, whatever. And I think it was like 6 or 8 months later, I was asked if I wanted to be one of the drivers. So I was like, hell yeah, it's this old Vietnam era 113, track vehicle APC, and so we went to go train with it. I don't remember. We'd go typically if there was a house being destroyed in the area, we would go train on it, and so we would learn to put the boom, smash through a window, to put a gas, shove our gas box through there and pull a pin, or learning to maneuver with guys next to you, because you can't see anything. I mean, you have these telescope windows because you're inside, but it was white on the outside, but on the inside it was still the old Vietnam green.
Okay.
So it was cool, but it was like the driver's seat was, it was narrow, and you just had 2 levers here, and that was your right or left. And I know when you had to shift it into reverse real quick, you'd have to hold them both, flip your shifter, and then you go back. So, and it had a gas pedal in there and all that. But
so what's the max speed on those things? Like 20 miles an hour? Like, they're pretty slow, aren't they?
I don't know. It felt like you were going really fast, but it looked like slow across the road. But it was cool. We got to do some pretty cool stuff with that.
Did you ever get to use it in like a real life thing, or just train with it?
We did. So there was, before I got there, they used it actually, if it got really, really bad snow-wise and people got stuck on the highway, they'd roll that sucker out on the highway and pick up people. But we did get used. We were deployed a lot as the trump card of, okay, it's getting real. But we did get deployed, actually activated at a barricade. The guy I think he had killed 1 or 2 people, and there was a kid hostage in this house, and we were there. This is actually the night before my engagement party. So I had been up for like all day, getting ready to go to bed, and it was like 11 something at night. My pager went off, and they're like, all hands, we're going to KCK. And so it was in KCK because we were kind of their we were KCK's backup and support and all that. So we deploy out there, and we actually just had everything staged, and we were there for like 12 hours. And so, we're just chilling, and then one of the commanders is like, hey, you two, I need you to come over here. And we're like, okay, do you need us to go to the grocery store or something? And they're like, this is what we're going to have you guys do. So they were around this apartment. It was like a townhome, but it was like several homes. But and we're 3 blocks away at our command center, and then the site. So they're like, we want you guys to go up there, and then when you get there, the sergeant. Oh, sorry about that. Watch out for that. This is another story. That sucker got bit off. I'll tell you that one later sometime.
Bit off.
My finger was bit off, yeah. So I don't know. Sometimes I touch
That
stuff.
got your trigger finger. Man, that's not good.
It is, but I got... You can feel it.
Trigger up.
Yeah. I'll tell you, the ER, I said, just cut it off. I'm good. I don't want to save it. Just cut it off. That's a whole nother story. But so we're like, we want you to get up there. The sergeant that's got eyes on, or one of the guys that has eyes on, they'll call you on the radio and tell you, where they want you to go in. But we're basically going to have you go up to the screen door. It's a big double door, slider door, and there's a couch up against it. So we want you guys to breach the double pane window, and basically drag this couch
So
out.
do you got like a hook on your boom? That
We have a giant boom with like a giant metal, flat piece of metal that you can put a smoke box on the front of it. I think at one time we had a giant smiley face on it. But so we were to go up there, smash out the window, hook. Basically, you drop your boom down and pull the couch out. But they're like, please try not to knock the air conditioner that's sitting right outside. Try not to destroy, because you don't want to destroy anything. It's strategic, stuff to get those guys in safely. And so we go up there, and I remember we're driving down. At this time, our hatches were open, so I was driving. The other guy was running the boom, and so I'm sitting, about like this high over the top, so I can see. And there's like the building was here, and then like up on, you go like a quarter mile, and then there's like a park, and it's like a big like lawn area. And there's like 100 people just sitting there watching. Like, this is daytime TV. And so we roll down there, and we buckle up our hatches, and we maneuver our way in there through this backyard, and end up smashing the window out, pulling the couch out. And I think they had thrown robots inside, and they saw him like sleeping or something or other, but they were able to get the young girl. It was, I don't know if she's like 6 or I don't remember, but they got her out, and they ended up getting the guy. But being able to be used like that, I was like, man, after all these years, we finally get used. And we get back to the command post. Who's driving? Who's doing? They're like, great job. So it was cool, because you're always there, but you never really get to
use your training.
Yeah. So
it's like you don't want anything bad to happen, but you're like, damn, I really want to knock through somebody's house.
yeah. But it was a lot of fun. Part of operating that, it was pretty cool. We would always go to the big truck display for kids, and we'd show, like, we'd have the back ramp open and stuff. So that was cool. But we ended up having to give it back to the government at a certain time period in our time.
Yeah.
And so they took it back, and we're like, well, what's going to happen? It's probably going to be a target on the range for the Navy somewhere. So we ended up just using basically a Bearcat, which is a smaller Brinks truck, more or less. And then we had a Bear that was a giant Brinks truck, more or less. So we basically became drivers for that. If one guy was driving, the other would be support on top, either with an AR or whatever. We needed to be kind of, just make sure everybody's good in and out. But so we got to go to a vehicle assault school down in, I think it was Memphis area. But that was like a week-long school. So that was really cool, being able to learn how to drive pretty cool with these big vehicles, shooting out of them, shooting out of the ports, learning to shoot under, just maneuver, around your vehicle, but then using your vehicle as a tool. So, I mean, it was a pretty cool school. So
you go from doing that, and then you kind of got into the DOT world. And I know about the same time you were doing that, I was running safety for a trucking company. I'm calling you and like, hey, my idiot driver did this or that or the other. I think that those guys get a really bad rap, but they're doing a really important thing at the end of the day, because we were just down in Jamaica, and we saw some of these trucks coming by. It's like, I don't want that truck anywhere near me.
no.
Now, from the driver's side of it, I've had some pretty zealous troopers that have, my thought is you can write somebody in any commercial truck a ticket for anything at any point in time. But on the flip side, you're like, I'm sure you see stuff that's like, you need to be in jail for the way you're running this truck down the road.
Yeah. I enjoyed doing the compliance on that as far as the enforcement side, because, I mean, there truly are a lot of commercial vehicles that are absolute garbage driving down our streets. Sure. And for the most part, there is a lot of regulations, and some of it's silly. I'm sure there's a lot of legislative reasons for this or that, 100%. But I would always, tell drivers or people like, imagine you're driving this truck down the road and your family's in a convertible either next to you, behind you, or in front of you. Do you feel comfortable driving this truck? Well, no. There's our problem.
Yeah.
So, but a lot of it was education because, reality is there's a lot of phenomenal trucking companies that have everything ironed out. They have good information. Their drivers are trained well. But there's a lot of companies that just try to just get by to make money to get to the next level. And it sucks because unfortunately they get hammered with tickets or, state, violations or whatever. But truly trying to be education through enforcement. Just because you get an inspection doesn't mean you're going to get a ticket. You could have violations on your company for the truck, but not you personally aren't getting a ticket.
I was going to say, I'd say 95 to 5. My guys would get violations that went to the company, but very rarely, unless they didn't have their seatbelt on or they were speeding or doing something that was clearly them.
Yeah.
It all went to the company.
Yeah. And so the only time that I remember, truly, if you got a ticket for me on anything involving DOT or FMCSA stuff would be driver responsibility. And that would be seatbelt. I didn't hook up my breakaway. That's on you personally. And so those would be the only times that really I would even write a ticket for that.
And you also ran into some like drug enforcement type stuff. Like I remember you talking about like having like a rangefinder measuring like the back of the inside of trailers to make sure they didn't have false walls and stuff like that.
So there are several guys that did it. I didn't do a whole lot of that. I got informed and went to some training seminars and stuff like that on it. But around town, a lot of what I personally was doing was local route trucks,
like lawn mowing vehicles,
lawn care company trucks. Your trailers that are hauling mud and dirt and stuff like that. But those are the ones that they don't always have the right brakes. They don't have anything hooked up, or they're too heavy, and so. But yeah, there's all sorts of schools on trafficking and drug interdiction, stuff like that. So, but I had fun doing it. Everybody in the area, we'd get together, all the inspectors, and it was fun. There were some hard charging guys that were all about it, but I think it was a good balance in the metro for sure.
I got out of truck driving because I couldn't go through an inspection station without getting a ticket. Never. And it was never to me personally, so I get that whole saying, but it's still a hassle. When you're driving, you're driving across the state, and you get to the other side, and it's like, I'm a quarter of an inch on a strap that flared or something like that, and it's like you got to ride it. You're doing a job, I get it, but I was tired of it.
I always thought too that you guys have a job to do, and when it comes to like company equipment, you're not the one paying for it. You're not the one, But if it comes down to, okay, this company truly needs to be educated, you will do this because the law is this.
For sure.
Obviously, it goes to the courts and the state and all that stuff. But I really tried not to mess with the driver themselves.
It was always the inspection stations that got me every time.
I had a trooper.
No matter what state.
My box lights were out. Every one of the box lights, I had a short and a wire.
Yeah.
He wrote me individual violations for every single box light around the top clearance light. It was like 8 violations or whatever. However many lights were on there, he wrote every one. I'm like, dude, it's one wire. He's like, nope, that light's out. That's light. I'm like,
so you want to know why they do that? Is because if you just get a one fix-it ticket, they're going to put every single light on there because then you have to fix every single violation. Does that make sense?
yeah.
That way it's like...
I just thought it was you had to pay for every single violation.
A lot of them are just fix it.
Well, and like that one, because I was director of compliance, so I tried to data accuse it and everything, because my CSA score jumped like 30-some points off of one breaking a wire that had all these lights out.
Which one of the Magnusons
That's
was
what I was
it that at Hellgate they wouldn't fix that truck?
So we had these...
That transfer truck, and he's going up to Omaha or wherever.
It was Kent.
It was Kent. Hey, boy.
Hey, buddy.
He held up a "Please pull me over" sign going through the way station.
Really?
Yes.
Because they wouldn't fix the truck, and he kept telling whoever, Greg
That's
or
right.
Jeff
Well,
at
it'd
the
break
time,
down halfway through.
Yeah.
Remember at 47, it didn't have air conditioning, and he'd take a gallon of water and dump it over his head driving
Oh
to
my
St. Louis.
gosh.
Then, remember, it broke down in Omaha, and they wouldn't go get him, so they made him ride the train from Omaha.
So that old
Are you
lady
kidding me?
No, they
Nobody-
made him ride a train.
Yeah, nobody would drive the
He
3
had to
hours.
ride a
It
train
was
back.
right after he got divorced too, so he is all hostile.
No, the
That
owner
poor
of this,
guy.
the owner of this company, Brett, he was such a tight ass, and he bought this house in the old money part, like where the senators live in Omaha, and he wanted this castle door, so he had this people measure, and he bought like an actual door from a castle in France.
It's like $150,000
Yeah.
front door, but he wouldn't buy a truck.
Oh my
that-
God.
Had it shipped over, and before it got there, he had the craftsman make the opening for it. The opening wasn't right, and he was too cheap to pay him to come back out, so the door wouldn't ever shut all the way. Then his wife decided.
I had an old Chevy that was that way, and I used a chain link on the door to shut my door.
Then allegedly their house, they wanted to build an addition, and it was going to hit the pool. So they had the pool dug up, moved over however many feet, and built the addition, built the exact same pool like 6 feet over versus redoing it. But the funniest thing, I was up there, and I'm not going to name the guy's name, but I go up there, and I think I'd bring a transfer truck, and it was snowing real bad one day. And we're out there on the dock, and I don't know if you were ever up at their place in Omaha, but it was like a street that came up onto, I think it's F Street, or one of the busy streets through Omaha. I mean, cars are going like 50 miles an
Yeah.
hour both ways. Well, he's got this really fancy BMW, and it's snowing, and you got to go up this little hump to get on the road. Well, he tried to hit it 3 times and kept sliding backwards. Well, he backs way up and gets a run, and we're all out there on the dock, and the dock guys are sitting there like, come on, 18-wheeler, come on, 18-wheeler.
Oh, jeez.
Cheering for him to get smoked. But
So I never met that guy. I mean, when I was there, it was a different company name,
right.
but they still I mean, that's just
When
the
he finally
craziness of
came
it.
down, I had an employee that I don't even know if I can talk about this shirt.
Probably
but
not.
This guy had on a highly inappropriate shirt, and it had all these cats on it, and I'll just leave
Yeah,
it at that. But,
yeah.
And it said the kind of cats, whatever.
Yeah.
So I'm like, Tim, you got to take that shirt off. He's like, dude, it's hot in here. It's like, I don't care. Put on your jacket.
Turn
Like,
it inside out. I don't care what you
whatever you do. You wore that shirt to work, but he's also the one. Remember, he had all the cases of beer just in the back of his car all the time.
Hot, like 110 degrees in the summer. As soon as he went out to his truck to leave, he'd open a beer. I'm like, there's no way.
Crack a hot
I
Bud
knew
Light.
I knew a lot of guys that would drink hot
That's
beer.
how he liked it.
Yeah.
That
Like,
is
dude, you can
nasty.
put it in the refrigerator. No, I don't like it that way.
Ugh.
Farmers down South Missouri, they'll have their 6-pack on the tractor. They'll just open one up as soon as they get done for the day. Nope.
Yeah.
So we're talking about you being in law enforcement and some of the training and stuff you had, and we talked about it briefly, but there's tons of training you guys go to, and we had a story on here a few weeks ago about them wanting teachers to be basically SROs for the schools. And our thoughts on it were kind of, you're asking these teachers to be caregivers to the students, parent figures to a lot of them, and you're also asking them to be basically deputies, which is
Right.
an entirely different skill set and stresses. What are your initial thoughts? Would you want that in your kid's school, or?
I don't know. I would have to look on that a little bit. I think it would depend on the person and the training, because you have police officers that get training pretty well, but in the end, a lot of departments, you only qualify once a year, and you may only go to the range once a year. And so if you don't shoot regularly, and then you get into a stressful situation, you lose ambidextrous. I can't even say the word now, but you lose, like you say you shoot 100%, you may only shoot 70% accurate or 50% accurate.
And that's with no stress. That's just shooting.
No, if you're 100% shooter,
Yeah,
you may go down to a 70% accuracy because of the stress and going on. There's been trainings where I saw the walls closing in on tunnel vision of so focused on this, and you don't hear people screaming or telling you stop, you don't hear it. You have to learn to train that way to be able to breathe, be able to keep this open. I don't know. I think it would depend on the person, what the expectation is, and can they perform. I think there's a need for security at our schools. I mean, truly. I mean, I have 3 daughters, and they're all in different. Well, 2 of them in one school, and one's in another. But my wife's also a teacher at an elementary school, so it's like, who's watching over, my precious cargo? Who's doing that? And the PD is a really good PD, but those things happen very quickly, and response times. Think about Columbine, where think about all these other schools and how quickly people could get in there. Our department, I think we trained phenomenally. A lot of departments have the same, protocol as if you get called to an active shooter, if you're first one there, you're going in. There is no waiting.
Like that happened down in Texas or just recently.
I mean, you're going in to stop as much as you can, to slow it down, to seclude that shooter or whatever it is. And I'm by no means a pro of any of that. But I do know that when it would come down to it, like our trainings, they were so realistic. We would have the schools, it'd be during summer or spring break or something, but we'd have FX guns and stuff like that. But they would tell you basically what's going to happen. Like, you're going to respond here, but you would get in your car and you'd be like across the parking lot or something, and you would have to be fully seatbelted in, and then they would call you on the radio, and so they would dispatch you. So you had to listen to what the dispatcher's telling you, clothing description, what they're doing, what's happening, and then you're driving to the door, getting out with your AR, and then you may have people running out at you over the loudspeakers. They would have literally mass chaos. Our agency went an extra step. They were cracking blank rounds off in the hallways. It was loud. I mean, and it gets your heart going, because you're like, holy crap, this is going down. You have kids screaming on the intercom. We also did a lot of training with our fire department. So, you would go in, with fire guys, they would come into the warm zone, go into, that's still a hot zone. They're not there yet. But, you have multiple shooters. One shooter's giving up, and what do? You're hearing rounds going off, and there's so much going on.
Well, and that shooter could have dropped his gun and tried to run out with the crowd.
Right. So, what do you do? And so being able to put that into there, and that training that we would do every year, but, having, fake blood everywhere, and you're having to throw tourniquets on people and carry people out. And how do you do this? How do you do that? That is a lot of stress that I don't know if all teachers could do. Like I said, I think it would depend on the person and the training and the school. I mean, you're carrying a final decision maker. I mean, you have the equalizer in your hand, and you better be able to know how to do it and use it. I mean, truly. So there's a lot of training that goes into that stuff, and there's you think about your SWAT teams in some of these bigger cities, they do training all the time, and they're more precision with it. But you do have an active shooter, and maybe you are the first one there. Look at that guy that was at that mall that was, stopped the shooter, and he had like a 50-yard pistol shot and got the guy, But even enough to stop or slow down is everything too. I mean, just being able to keep them in an area.
Well, and I think a lot of schools are going to it also, like the barricading in place and stuff. And Bret talked about it. They've got door stops now that are almost impenetrable on trying to get through. And I think that would be as much of it, even if a teacher is going to be armed, maybe armed and still sheltering, or, whatever they can do.
I'm not knowledgeable in all of the school and how they do this and that. Me personally, I would want to get the hell away from whatever's happening. For me, if there's a window in my room, I'm leaving. I'm not staying here. I'm getting the hell out of here. But I don't run the schools. I don't do that. I know that would add more chaos to responding people.
Yeah, I can't imagine a 26-year-old female trying to round up 21, 10-year-olds.
Right.
I mean,
and that could
would
be to keep everybody so
Yeah.
you can account for people, and that's part of it too, I'm sure. But even going out to dinner or whatever, I know you were wanting to talk a little bit about being prepared and being
let's
aware.
get into that. Like, and maybe tips is because most of our listeners are concealed carry people.
Sure.
And we talk about it all the time. What do you do in a traffic stop when you're carrying your gun? You as an officer, if you pull Bret over and he's got his 45 concealed carried, what would cops tell people who are carrying concealed?
Well, and I can only speak on what I do or what I did, but I've had people tell me hey, I'm armed. Okay, where is it at? Okay, it's here. Okay, just I've told a lot of people too. Hey, you keep yours there, and I'll keep mine here. Mutual agreement, right? The majority of people, in my opinion, I believe that if they have a gun and they're wanting to use it on you, they're going to. If I have a good person, even if they're pissed or whatever, a good person's not going to shoot a cop.
Right.
Zoom out a little bit on that, okay? I guess if I'm aware that there's a weapon in there, but reality is you treat every stop as there's a weapon in there. If people didn't tell me, I don't know to this day, and I don't care because it wasn't applied to my situation. It wasn't brought up. But I'm also a very, very firm believer in the Second Amendment. I mean, people have the right to carry firearms, protect themselves. And I stand by that. But do I think that you have an obligation to tell me? Maybe if I'm asking you to get out and it's on your person, maybe then, yeah. But if I'm just stopping you for running a stop sign or speeding, hey man, I got a gun, you're just adding more to the stop because depending on where you're at, some departments might be like, oh my God, give me everybody. But if I was being asked to step out, I would probably acknowledge it then. But you can see outlines of handguns on hips. You can see
a lot of times, if you're asking me to step out, that's probably going to be the first question. Do you have anything that's going to hurt
100%.
me, stick me, poke me, whatever?
100%. But there's some departments that they'll do you have any drugs or weapons in the vehicle? Well, depending on the stop, you don't have to answer that. I went to this one. I think it was something advanced traffic stops or something legal traffic stops, and don't quote me on this because this was many years ago.
Oh,
I've just
signed and delivered.
I know. I've been out a while now. I guess 17. So, but a lot of it is when the officer gets to your car, they introduce themselves or whatever. Once you produce the information required, they have to go back. They can't delay the stop by questioning. Now, if I ask you for your license, your registration, insurance, or whatever I'm asking for, while you're getting that, I can ask anything I want. But as soon as you provide the documentation, you have to go back to your car. Otherwise, you're delaying the stop. And so there's a lot of legalities, and unfortunately, there's a lot of case law that's made from bad traffic stops, not doing the right thing, or But again, I'm not a pro on any of that. But
Sure.
For me personally, I always treated every car as there was something in there that could hurt or kill me. But I wouldn't care either way. I guess if I asked you to get out, yeah, please let me know so I don't, crap the bed, or make it worse. Definitely keep your hands, where they can see it. That's a big thing, your hands. If it's dark out, I always hit all my dome lights, turn the whole thing in there, put windows down, whatever.
As I say, our grandpa always told me roll down your window when it comes up. So, and my windows are blacked out on my truck. I'll drop all 4 of the windows on my truck if I get pulled over, just so everybody can see what's going on and there's no questions.
Well, if your rear windows are tinted, I mean, I will tell you there is an ungodly amount of fear talking to a driver and I can't see what's right behind him. Put the window down. Just put them at ease because they don't know you. They don't know who you are. You could be a preacher that's the nicest guy in the world, or you could be a crazy guy. But give the officer the respect and know. I think that's where society lacks is they don't understand the perspective of law enforcement, of what it truly is. And so being able to open those or drop those back windows can really change the overall of everything because they can see, they have a little more comfort. Oh, there's only one guy here,
That makes a lot of sense.
Sorry, I'm trying to.
No, you're good.
I hope I'm not going deep in there, but there's a lot of thought-provoking stuff in there that I don't think people ask enough questions of why.
So, on the concealed carry thing, just from your experience in law enforcement, what can people do to be safer while they're concealed carrying? I'm sure a good holster where their weapon's secure and, not wearing, tight clothes are going to imprint it really well. What advice would you give to people just as a former cop?
I know for me, so I've carried hip, I've carried the small of my back, I've carried ankle holsters. I would go with comfort because if you're going to wear it, be comfortable. I've worn a gun that was too freaking big to have on my hip. I carried a large 45 for a long time on my hip, and it wasn't comfortable. If you're not comfortable, you're constantly checking it. Constantly. Well, you're just telling everybody you got a piece on your hip, or wherever. If you're constantly touching it to make sure it's there, one, you're no longer concealed because everybody knows you have it. The imprint, yeah, I mean, it looks really. You look like a boob in my I've seen it. I've seen cops that if you're wearing concealed and you're wearing a skin tight polo and the whole you can read the serial number through a shirt, whatever. But comfort is huge because you want to feel comfortable. When we carried, if you left the PD but you were able to keep your credentials, which I did, you would have to go back and qualify every year with basically your concealed piece to keep your credentials. And wherever you decided to wear it. So if it was an ankle holster, your hip, your back, wherever you want, you would have to shoot the qual course with that where it's at. So you would practicing drills of clearing the whole gun, pull that hoodie up or jack to get it out. Learning to kneel to get your pant leg up to pull your ankle. So a lot of it is comfort, access. I was always told, be quick to get it out, be slow to put it away. If you pull it out, it's for a reason. Don't rush it going back.
What kind of training drills or tips would you give people that are carrying?
Man, I'm not a firearms instructor.
Come on, Brett.
So here's it. Oh, sorry. I'm trying to take a drink and. Is this better? So, I try to look at everything from common sense, and keep it simple, stupid. If you need to practice or shoot at the range 15 yards or, think about most of your traffic stop shootings are within 25 feet or, 20 feet or from me to you, get good at that. If you're 50 yards away and you have a handgun, what is the likelihood of you hitting something, or are you just dumping rounds to keep that person over there, which can be used, but definitely quick out, slow to put away, and practice shooting personal. I mean,
It's like practical training.
yeah, if I'm getting robbed, in my car, I'm probably going to be, if I'm going to use my firearm, I'm probably going to be pretty dang close to you. Am I looking at my target, or am I just pointing my target? From when we would do our quals, I mean, when you're the 2 yards and the 3 yards, it's 2 to the chest, 1 to the head, or, one shot here, switch, but there was no aiming. It was get it out, crack, 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 crack as I'm coming up. What are you aiming for?
Yeah.
There's no room to aim. But as you get stepped out, then yeah, you need to dial it in. But if I'm like 50 yards away, unless I'm trying to keep somebody away, I'm going that way or finding a bigger gun.
That makes a lot of sense.
I don't want it to sound like oh, he's a coward, he's running away.
Well, no,
it's not. It's you're creating distance.
Well, and you listen to guys like Rob O'Neill that killed Bin Laden. He never carried a pistol on any of his raids because he's like, the only reason you need a pistol is to get to a rifle. Now, what they're doing is totally different than that. But
it's the same scenario because it's no different than cops have ARs in their car.
Right.
If he's at 50 yards, are you going to stay there with your pistol?
No. I'm going to get a tool that can keep that distance and still be accurate and effective.
Okay. Last thing, and then we'll probably take a quick break, get some lunch, recharge cameras here. So God forbid some of our listeners here, one of them, they get in an incident where they have to use their firearm. Somebody comes up on them, whatever, they have to use their firearm. What should they do immediately following having to use their firearm?
I don't even know where to start.
Okay.
I mean, there's so many legalities, different states, different this. I mean, you would want to probably get an attorney because
call 911, get an attorney.
Are you talking about like home, at street, or just wherever? I mean, if it's
just in general
active shooter, you're gonna want to probably talk to an attorney at least because if you killed somebody, somebody's gonna sue you, whether it's criminally or civilly. Could there be charges? Maybe not. But I would say know your firearm laws in your state, number one. And, I think the craziest thing is if you're carrying concealed and you have that boomstick in your pocket, you better be prepared to use it. And if you're not, then you probably shouldn't be carrying it. And if you are going to carry it with the potential of having to use it, you should know the ramifications of doing that. Now, a lot of, in my home, it's my castle, my domain, but there's still litigation that could come up. But I would say definitely know your firearm laws. I would probably talk to somebody a little bit higher education on that than me. But I try to think, common sense. Like, sure. You're probably going to be talked to by the police. You're probably going to be talked to by the defense side. You're probably going to be... So I would say have an attorney to help you do that. The majority of the time, the police are going to have a pretty good idea if it was in self-defense or not pretty quickly, but it could still change. But yeah.
So I got a question for you, and it's more for the viewers than for me per se, but we talked to a lot of people at concealed carry in general. You talked about the comfort aspect of holsters. We make the leather holsters.
Yes.
Main purpose is comfort.
Yeah.
So you got the guys that argue, okay, well, you can't reholster. Okay, well, there's an argument to everything. Kydex holsters aren't as comfortable. They got different benefits. But what I tell people all the time, and I just want your perspective of it, because I've looked at stats across the country, but what I tell people on the soft leather holsters, nobody argues that it's way more comfortable.
Oh, yeah.
Their only argument is, well, I can't reholster my gun. Well, if you look at the stats from like self-defense shootings in public, not your house, if you're out on the street somewhere, self-defense, the stats say that over 99% of people do not reholster their gun.
Right.
You go through that stressful situation. Yeah. God forbid, even you as a cop don't want to have to draw your gun, right, let alone a civilian. You go through all of that. They're like, well, you have to reholster your gun and all this. What are your thoughts on that stat? Is that what you would... I don't know if you've ever been in that situation, but does that sound right to you, that the stat that most people aren't going to reholster their gun? Like, you get called to a shooting and come back and it's just some random guy sitting there acting like nothing happened. You know what I mean?
Again, like I was saying, I truly think it's quick out and slow to put it away. Because, you know, when we would do our range drills, you would draw, you'd shoot, and then you were checking. You were looking around, checking your surroundings before I put that back away, okay? If I'm involved in the shooting, you know, depending on how long it takes the police to get there, you may put it away, but you may have it set down, slide back, mag out, setting out. There's my firearm.
But either way, you show up to the scene. You're not just going to let that guy keep his gun, are you?
It depends on the thing, but more than likely, no.
Because
it's
cop
used
shootings.
it's in that.
It's going to be evidence at that point.
Cop-involved shootings. They come up, they take that officer completely out of the situation.
Yes.
His gun included. And he's off.
Yes. So that was kind of I know when it came to officer-involved shootings, and thank God I was not involved in one, but typically you'll holster your gun, but somebody's going to give you another gun, because the mental state of, if I shoot somebody, now they're taking my gun. What do they think? I'm nuts? They think I'm crazy? So then we're going to give you another gun, but we need that for evidence. So we're not saying you did anything wrong. We're going to give you a gun, but we're going to take that one because we need it for court, more or less.
Yeah, and that's for the police. But on the civilian side, you ain't giving him your gun. You know what I mean? So the guy that wants to argue about the reholstering thing, in general, once the police are coming to talk to him, you're not going to the station with your gun that you just shot somebody with.
No, they're going to take it as evidence, because they're going to do ballistics. They're going to do all this stuff. So 100%. I agree with that. Okay. And truly, it goes back to quick out, slow back, because maybe when they get there, they're like, okay, you're good. Can we take possession of your firearm? Yeah. But you could also be like, well, no, you have to get a warrant. Well, either way, they're going to get it, because they have to have it for ballistics. They want to know what bullet hit where on what So I 100% agree with those stats, because you pull your gun, you're pulling it for a reason. You aren't going back home yet.
And I think
that would frustrate me from your side, yeah.
From just a civilian side, which is what we deal with, which is why it's awesome you being here. You talked about even cops that have way more training than what 99.9% of these civilians have.
Oh, yeah.
You go in the situation and it's still stressful.
Oh, yeah.
I think so many people in the concealed carry market underestimate how stressful of a situation that is and how it impacts everything. They want to act like G.I. Joe in a way, and think, oh, I'm going to do this and not think anything about it. Well, that's not realistic, because even you guys are military that train for that. That's not realistic.
Right.
So
unless you're in that, like those special forces guys, the military, unless you're training with explosions or, lots of gunfire around, you may not even hear your gunfire. You may not even hear it in shooting. You just won't, because you're so hyper-focused. But those guys train so much, it's second nature to them. They may not have a stress level like a law enforcement or, everyday civilian, but in the end, it is still stressful. I mean, you're going to... You could freeze up. You could be I go to the range, and then it comes down to it, and you got three guys cracking rounds at people over here. These people are on the ground. And you're like, what use are you?
I've heard stories of special forces guys. They'll get out and they'll get in their first real gunfight, and they freeze up, and that's after years of training before they even get deployed.
Well, yeah, I mean, no matter how much training, your life isn't really in jeopardy until that moment.
Well, and it's practical stuff, because you also see, like, in our market, like 3-gun guys that go and shoot 3-gun. Well, shooting 3-gun is completely different. You could be the world-class 3-gun shooter. Doesn't mean you're worth a damn at concealed carry, because it's a whole different thing. It's not a practical situation.
Well, and, on top of that, unless you hit a right spot, I mean, you may shoot somebody 3 times and they're still coming at you at full speed. That's why the whole, the distance with knife. Well, if they're a really large dude and you shoot them 6 times, you didn't hit a vital organ, you didn't hit a brain, they're still shooting at you. I know we did drills where here's a good drill. You shoot targets. Start putting a t-shirt on and cover it up so you can't see where you hit. You ain't going to see where you hit when you shoot a person.
Well,
so shoot the t-shirt, then go, God dang, I suck.
Well, you talk about the knife thing. From my security days down in Westport, I had a couple officers come by and talk to me, and the night before they had a large dude on PCP running down the street with a butcher's knife. The guy, one of the officers, dumped an entire mag out of his 45 into him. The other guy shot him like 3 times with double-aught buck. So they shot him 16, 20 times before this guy finally dropped. So you factor in the drugs and everything else into it as well.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot to good range time, but I mean, it goes back to real common sense, especially with your holster, like you guys were talking about, comfort. Think of
if you don't have it, what good does it do you?
Right.
Yeah.
But it also as well, be comfortable. And these leather holsters you guys have, money. They're perfect because they do mold to you. They're just, you have to be comfortable if you're going to carry your firearm every day. 100%. Yeah. Fast out, slow in.
That's a good motto for a lot of stuff.
Well, I think it's just good to hear from somebody else because people look at us. I mean, we all shoot. I shoot a lot, but that doesn't mean I'm good at any situation. But using the practical training, but here's somebody that has a different level of training be on the same page. Because you can get that argument about everything.
Yeah.
The guy, you're an idiot if you carry that holster because you can't reholster it. Well, you're probably the same guy that lives in your mom's basement and never go to the range.
And think of it this way too. It could be scenario based too, like application. Maybe I wear a leather for day to day. Maybe if I'm going to church, I got a nice shoulder or Kydex or whatever. If I'm doing this or that, I have a certain place. Be comfortable all around you. Being able to pull from, draw from different spots. Being comfortable carrying it. Learning to trust that your holster works and it's not moving. Because if, like I said earlier, you keep touching, everybody knows you got a gun.
I tell people that all the time when they ask about getting used to it. No matter what you do, this is one of the most comfortable holsters on the market.
Yeah.
You're not used to it being in your pants. It's a foreign object.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Like before you even go try to, no matter how good a shot you are, before you even go try to conceal carry, wear that at your house
all the time.
At night for months. And once you get to the point where you're not feeling for it and jack
right.
with it, then you're ready to go concealed carry.
You know it's there.
Just because you buy a holster and have a gun doesn't mean you have to start now. It can be a process of getting yourself
100%,
to there.
100%. I agree with that. Yeah.
All right, let's take a quick break here. We're going to
Good,
go.
because I got to go to the bathroom.
Good. So, hey, this episode is sponsored by Warhorses for Veterans, and instead of me reading a spiel about it, I got the man here. Brett, give us the 30-second overview of Warhorses, how they can get a hold of you, and our next episode, which we will film after this, will be all about Warhorses, so we can really dive deep. But what's Warhorses?
Warhorses for Veterans. You can go to our website, whfv.org, warhorsesforveterans.org. We are a horsemanship program, week-long clinics. We bring veterans, first responders, all branches, combat vets. We put them through a program, start on the very, very bottom of learning about horses, up to throwing ropes, cutting cows, chase them down the fence, depending on the group. But we work with area therapists. It's just a good program to get you a good restart, a good recalibration of where you need to be. You think about people that deal with heavy PTSD, just life getting them down. But I always think that we're the organization, the program that gets people where they're the right direction and just give them that push. So we'll definitely talk more. But
I'm looking forward to
veterans. Yeah,
part 2
check
of
us
this.
out.
Follow us on Muddy River Tactical on all the major socials. use promo code MRT Podcast on the website for 15% off holsters, not guns, unfortunately. Good in the shop too. Until next episode, we will see you guys. Thanks for listening. Kevin, you want to wrap us up?
Keep practicing and always be prepared.